Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Well, hello, Mr. Burmese.
Well, hello, Ms. Mans.
Oh, yes, I swear, yeah, indeed.
I don't know what Mr.
I don't
We
know
could
the
do the old
pronounced either.
school Star
NX.
Trek where everyone is Mr.
Or just Mans.
Mans.
His last name.
Well, then I sound like a fratty.
Hey,
What up,
man.
Mans?
Hey, Burmese.
Hey, Burmese. And hello, you out there, whatever your last name is.
Hello, dear listener.
Dear listener. And welcome to a brand new thing, season, episode, a collection of this wonderful podcast that we call Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast. My name is Aki Burmese, and
I'm Stevie Mans.
we're just so excited. I'm
If you
trying to
couldn't
get it
tell,
all in order. Yeah,
we're so
am I
excited.
No, I'm fine. I'm cool as the other side of the pillow. All right. We're changing up the format slightly, just so things are a little more clear. So at the top, I just want to let you know today's star date is Stardate 121119.6. And we'll be discussing Season 4, Episode 1 of Star Trek Discovery. Season 4, I Say Unto Thee, Episode 1 of Star Trek Discovery, entitled Kobayashi, Maru. Pew, 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 pew. But before we get into that, I just want to let you know that Set Phasers, we're a podcast, and basically we're an after show where we discuss weekly, as timely as possible, the episodes of Star Trek that have just come out. In this instance, we're beginning Season 4 of Star Trek Discovery, and we'll be going at it week to week, coming out every Monday, discussing the episode and things that we loved about it. And also we have, I think, a full backlog of Discovery seasons 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Picard season 1, Lower Decks.
If you want to recap stuff, we have all of it for like the last year and a half, I think.
If you're trapped on a desert island with excellent Wi-Fi, you can listen to hours of our coverage of Star Trek.
Yeah.
But yes, we're called Set Phasers. We also have a Patreon, Stevie.
We do have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/setphasers. You can join our Patreon for early access to audio and video episodes, where normally the free episodes are only out Monday, wherever you get your podcasts. But if you join our Patreon, you can get them ahead of time as they are live streamed. That is exclusive access. And of course, we also do Netflix watch parties for our famous and lovely patrons. Famous, I don't know why I said famous.
Famous to
and
us.
you're just dancing around in front of me, that's why. And
well, this is what I think I'll do for Patreon. So people know, if you get the Patreon level where you can watch it live, whenever Stevie does this rundown, I'll dance the whole time.
Oh, yeah. And it's great dancing, people. You don't want to miss out on that. And of course, we also do shout outs for our patrons too. So that is patreon.com/setphasers if you want to become an ensign, a lieutenant, or a commander.
Commander. Ensign, lieutenant, or commander.
Indeed.
Yes, that dancing really took it out of me. I don't know how long we're going to keep that feature. Well, I guess we got to get into it. I guess it's time to run down this episode. Season 4, Episode 1, Star Trek Discovery, Kobayashi Maru. Let's run it down.
Let's run it down.
It's time to run it down.
Can you run it down for me? What just happened? Can you run it down for me?
Okay, listen. I have a tendency to get caught in the weeds, but we're just going to run down this episode because this season looks like it's going to start. It's going somewhere crazy. We begin with Captain Michael Burnham.
Captain Michael Burnham.
Captain Michael Burnham and Book. They're on the a planet of what I can only describe as bioluminescent butterflies or moths. And they're doing some outreach for the Federation with the Al-Shane, who in my notes I describe as an all-white mothy people.
They were sort of a cross between Andorians and butterflies to me.
Yes,
That's kind of where
they're like pale Andorian butterfly people.
Yeah.
And basically they're offering them the dilithium because you remember in the last season they found that whole planet full of dilithium, and once they took care of the reasons for the burn, they're able to mine all this dilithium, so now there's an abundance of it, and they're trying to bring the Federation back, and so they're offering dilithium with, quote, no strings attached. Despite their best efforts, there is a vast misunderstanding between the Alshanes and Michael and Book. And eventually, I think the main crux of where things go wrong is Book's carnivorous pet cat, Grudge. Apparently, the Alshane are not carnivores. They find it offensive, and then they find out that Grudge is a, quote, queen, which is something that Book says quite a bit, and which in my tinfoil hours I speculate on endlessly. And they say, we will free the queen. And so the glowing butterflies form wings on their backs and armor and like masks over their eyes, and they pull weapons and they start chasing Michael and Book. And they're chasing through a forest, and they have to jump off a cliff, and they get into one thing, and that thing gets destroyed, and then they got to run by a rock and everything. However, they're having trouble flying, and with the help of her trusty crew, Michael is able to figure out that because of the magnetic shift, the shift of the magnetic poles of the planet, the Alshane are having trouble navigating because I guess they're like birds or something. And in order to prevent that from happening, they have these satellites, but the satellites run on dilithium, and so they send a bunch of dots over from Discovery to refill the dilithium into the satellites, and that helps the Alshane basically be able to navigate, but they're still shooting at Michael and Book. But Michael and Book run off of a cliff onto Book's ship, which I still don't think we have a name for. I just call it Sword Ship because it looks like a sword.
It's a weird looking thing. It just reminds me of a slice of pizza.
Slice of pizza, sure. And yeah, so they get on the pizza ship. And notably, Book leans over and pets Grudge before they take off into the atmosphere and join their crew on the Discovery. It's great to see the crew again. Lieutenant Reese has the con. He's in the chair. Tillie's science officer. Adira and Stamets down in engineering are helping figure out this whole... everything's going great. I see. So aside from this like crazy early opening thing with the people and the misunderstanding and a lot of anger and diplomacy is hard, everything's going great for the Federation. That's how I would describe the first half of this episode, and it made me very, very nervous. They fly back, and a number of things happen. Basically, Book is going to go to his home planet of Kewjian because his nephew is going through something that I wrote down. It's called the Kewjian ceremony, and I guess it's some sort of rite of passage into adulthood. And Michael's like, I'll join you there in a bit, but she has to do this speech back at Federation headquarters because they're, after 125 years, they're reopening Starfleet Academy. I smell a spinoff. And she has to give a speech.
Cadet
but
Academy or something.
Cadet Academy 3221 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then that's 3190 something. Don't quote me on that. And then but she has to give the speech and then like introduce the new president of the Federation. And apparently Michael's upset because the president's kind of a politician. He doesn't want to get dragged into politics. Whatever. Other than that slight misgiving, everything is like, everyone is smiling a lot, like a ton. Like everyone's smiley. Like, it's great to see you, Book. It's great to see you, Mike. See you on Kewjian. Have a look at your nephew's Ikuzen ceremony, etc. Even when Mike is giving the speech to the cadets, it's full of hope and joy and love and all the wonderful. It's like the end of a season of Star Trek Discovery, and that's why I got this creeping feeling that things were going terribly wrong. Anyway, Michael introduces the new president, President Lara Rillick, who's a total politician, but gives a sort of nice speech and introduces the new Archer space dock behind her, and we get a sweeping Archer, and we get the music from not the theme song from Star Trek Enterprise, but rather the sort of the orchestral theme that played towards the end of the episodes, which was a lovely theme. It's a bit of a schmaltzy moment, but I got my eyes weren't dry, and
you love a bit of orchestral music, don't you?
I do love a bit of orchestral music. I can't help myself. I just love it. And Michael gets called away by Admiral Vance. Apparently, there's a deep space repair station that's in trouble, and they've sent a message that got cut off, and there's no time to send any ships at warp, even though Kewjian is close to that planet. They wouldn't be able to get there in time, so Disco's going to go immediately using the spore drive, and President Rilek wants to go, and she decides she is going to go over Michael's protests. So they leave the station, they jump, there's a little friction between Michael and the president. They jump to the station, and the station is basically wheeling through space like an absurd, like crazy, like on 3 axes. And there's some sort of extreme spatial lensing that happened at the time that their thrusters failed. Tillie and Adira, who is a little nervous because they've just made ensign and wants to prove that they deserve to be there. They beam over to help the crew of that space station get their act together. They get there, and there's a guy named Commander Nahus, and he is very much on edge and kind of immediately starts talking down to them, even though they're Starfleet, like, yo, dude, but whatever. They're like, okay, fine. Tillie's like, yeah, fine, we'll defuse the situation. You can hold on to the programmable matter, and we'll do some other stuff. And they're going to try to get this station back under control. As they get the station out of, like, its crazy spin, frozen methane hail starts sweeping in and crashing into things. And so Discovery, which has matched orbit with the station, has to expand its shield. And now there's like this frozen methane rain, which is a weird thing because that wouldn't really be that close to a planet. So it must have come from somewhere far away. Commander Nahus is now extremely on edge. They don't have time to sort of like fix the station and move away. So now they have to abandon the station. It's a repair mission. But they can't get to the escape pod that like would take them there and back, so they have to use the one that's on the level that's sort of only supposed to go. But Adira is able to reprogram it so it can go and come back and then go and come back, but it's being blocked by some sort of wreckage. And so Michael decides to go over the protests of President Rilek now. Protest over protest over protest, and goes down there in a ship, but the ship gets hit by some methane. A truck drives past my window very loudly. That's the sound of methane hitting a ship. Michael has to continue in a spacesuit, manage to get things cleared. They have to go over in 2 teams. The first team goes, and who's left behind is Tillie, Adira, and Commander Nahus. The first crew goes over, comes back. Now, as they're doing the second trip, which is going to take 5 minutes, they find out on the bridge of Discovery that it's going to be 4 minutes before the shields fail, and then there's going to be open vacuum and just this crazy hail of frozen methane chunks that they can do nothing about. President Rilek is like, we should go. We should cut our losses. You can't save everyone. Michael's like, we are going to save everyone. We are going to wait. I don't care what it takes. They do manage to get into the ship. They fly over to Discovery and jump away. But just as some debris crashes into the landing bay, boom, crash, smash, boom. Turns out Tillie and Adira fine. Nahus,
Not
kaput.
so much.
Yeah, well, several others also died. Apparently there were some huge injuries. Michael gets sort of a dressing down from the president later, who's like, I was not here just in a political capacity. I was trying to decide who would be the captain of our new Voyager ship, which is going to be super dope. Michael's like, with all due respect, President, I wouldn't have left Discovery because it's my home. But I don't see how my command style is bad. They have a long discussion about the Kobayashi Maru, which is a whole thing if you watch enough Star Trek.
If you watch Star, you know what the Kobayashi Maru is.
You know the Kobayashi Maru test, and you know that only one person has ever passed it, and it's only because they cheated, and that person was James Tiberius Kirk. So that is what happens there. We'll come back to that in a second. Meanwhile, Book is on Kewjian, which is near the closest planet to the Deep Space Repair Beta 6. He does this touching ceremony with his nephew at what they call the World Root, which I guess is just a huge tree that runs through their space druid planet. They put blood and sap from the tree into a thing that they wear around their neck, which apparently Book doesn't have tinfoil time. And then they're like, go run off, play. And, you know, there's again so many smiles and happy looks that I was like, I thought at this point, a space dragon jumps down and eats all of them. It just looked too happy. But what happens is like birds fly away, and Book gets up in his ship to see what's happening, and he tells his brother and his nephew to find cover, and then he gets hit by something. He sees like a weird like planetoid shape in the sky, and then he gets hit and knocked out, and his ship goes on autopilot to Discovery. And when he wakes up, he's on Discovery, and he's like, "We got to get to Kewjian. Something was happening there." And they search for Kewjian on their long-range sensors, on their long-range sensors, and they can find nothing. And when they look a few light years further, they find a destroyed planet. And Book there looks upon the destruction of the planet that once was Kewjian, and he says, "They're all gone." Well, that is the end of Season 4, Episode 1, Star Trek Discovery, the Kobayashi Maru. How exciting!
You want to chat?
Should we, I don't know, should we chat about this episode or something? I don't know, do we have a drop for that?
Let's do.
I say, darling, let's do a quick chat about that.
Yes, let's do. Oh, what wonderful British voiceover actor did you get to record that drop, Stevie?
I don't know. It was quite a performance, wasn't it?
Whoever they are, very talented.
Very.
And they brought their own extras to do some claps, huh? That's interesting. Okay, let's talk about the episode. Any significant moments that you enjoyed? I have like 4 bullet points.
Do you? Okay. Well, one of the things that I had was not necessarily like a moment, but it was part of the set. The AR wall.
Yes.
Wow. That's...
Say what?
Say what? That really elevates things, doesn't it? Because I remember looking at that scene and I hadn't twigged that it was an AR wall. I was like, oh, this looks really good. How did they do this? And then subsequently, I watched Ready Room with Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton. And they did a little video package of, explaining the AR wall. And I think Jason Zimmerman is the video effects guy or videographer or something like that.
Yeah.
Emmy nominated or Emmy winning, who knows. And he had come up with this idea that apparently Discovery now shares with Strange New Worlds. So we can expect to see this wonderful effect on Strange New Worlds next year.
Wow. I wanted to say wonderful and bonkers at the same time. And just said wonkers. Wonkers. That's wonkers. Yes. There was a lot of lovely things in this episode. I was so delightfully entertained by seeing them, my friends again. My friends.
That's so cute.
Dr. Colbert and Adira, and even there was a bit of Gray, which was great. I didn't know, because I know Gray is incorporeal at this point. But you really got to see everyone. You got to see them really in their element. One thing I did note was that there's this weird uncertainty going on with Tillie. Like, is it a lack of self-confidence?
Yeah.
Or does she just not know if she wants to remain in the Starfleet anymore, or what the deal is? She got this promotion to lieutenant, and maybe she thinks it was too soon. But Michael has this utmost confidence in Tillie,
And she did well on the away mission.
She did fantastic. She just had that one moment where they were like, "What are you going to do next?" And she was like, "I don't know," which was a little scary. But seeing that interaction reminded me of just the first time Michael and Tillie are together in Tillie's room.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Tillie's like, something about snoring and
that's my bed or
talking
something.
about her mother tongue. Yeah, it's just Tillie was so wonderful, and now she's like a little bit more steady. She's sort of like she has like a mixture between, I would describe her as like, if you're doing a TNG comparison, she's like a mixture of, in relationship to Michael, she's like a mixture of Anna Troy and Crusher. Do you know what I mean? Her relationship, she's like Michael's sounding board, the person that Michael can go and talk to, in the capacity that Jean-Luc could only ever like talk to about his fears and worries with Deanna Troi, and then he can only really confide personally in
I see what you're saying there.
Dr. Crusher.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just like that she's got this, she's like so grounded for Michael, who seems grounded, but even as the president points out, does have I think this is my other note, the Achilles heel of Michael. She's compelled to save everyone. She doesn't want to lose anybody. And that can be great, but can also be her weakness. And I wrote, Michael's Achilles heel, this ain't your Kirk's Federation. Because 200 years prior to this in the Federation, That's all Kirk does. He's like, well, dude, no, not gonna leave that out. He jumps down the thing. The Klingons kill his son. He's fighting, fist punch,
Mm-hmm.
But now this president's like, we need you to be a little cooler.
We need you to stay on the ship, essentially. Yeah, Michael went off to do her spacewalk, and the president was like, Are you sure you want to do that? Really?
Which is interesting, because I didn't know whose side to be on in that instance.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, if you're really going to save these people, you do want the person with the most time in one of those machines, which Michael was.
Yeah.
I think it betrays that she has a huge amount of confidence in her crew that they can handle the ship while she's off doing something particular. But at the same time, it is, the captain leaving the ship to do something incredibly dangerous.
And she nearly didn't make it back.
She nearly didn't make it. I agree with the president's assessment of Michael, but I don't know that it's incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
That is fair. I just felt with Tillie like there was, we were meant to see a maturity. We were meant to see like a little graduation, not only with her rank, but with her as a person. And I think where she and Michael have been besties, I think she's looked up to Michael and she's relied on Michael. But I think now it's becoming a little more even.
Right. Which it always surreptitiously has been.
Yeah.
Because I really feel like Michael, because she was raised by Vulcans, is very good at seeming as if she's very much in control and not fazed by situations. But, she's been through what Michael has been through in relative a year and a half's time from maybe it's a little bit longer. She was in jail for a while, but from losing Giorgio and the original Shenju and going to jail and then coming back and then meeting What's-His-Tush and him being super evil and going to the Mirror Universe and seeing Giorgio again. At the same time, she was dating that guy who turned out to be like a clandestine Klingon warrior. They were in love, but then he killed Culber and tried to ruin she went through all that. Then she met her mother. Then she had to travel almost 1,000 years into the future and was by herself for a year. That stretch, the trauma she has gone through personally, let alone as a Starfleet officer, is absurd. So I think that speaks well to how much of a rock Tillie and Saru have been for her as she's had to deal with all those things. And Giorgio, who's now gone.
Yeah. One thing I would like to chat about is we didn't really mention Saru.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Did I skip my Saru chapter? I did.
Maybe I mentioned it. Did you?
No,
I'm not
I
sure.
think I missed it.
We may have glazed over it like a donut. I don't know.
No, it was good.
I was going to say like a Krispy Kreme, but we did sort of glaze over it. But it was the AR wall of that room.
Oh yeah.
They're making really good use out of it.
Yeah, they're using the heck out of it.
They really. They have to.
Right.
Bloody budget on it's huge. But it looked fantastic, and you could see what were the other creature? I've forgotten the name of the black creatures.
But I was like, I just noted that they both were, their council is both creatures together, and their room is underwater. Yeah,
so that they can be together, and I don't know, say rule together, but they can make decisions and whatever together. I don't know. They are black and weird looking, you just don't want to trust them.
But I thought they did a good job of making them less ominous now. They're
really?
Floating in their windows, and they look scary. Sharks are scary, but sharks are nice. They're not nice, but you know what I'm saying? Things that we are terrified of that look scary to us are not necessarily bad. I think they were meant to be scary. Probably. Here, all right, let me get super nerdy. They're just as the Kelpians are biologically predetermined to sense the coming of death and to be prey. I think the other creatures. Are you looking it up? Are you Googling it?
No, I'm not Googling it.
I was going to say we
have
a
to Google
it. I could. Yeah, if we got a cue for.
You can Google that.
The Baul.
Woo! Yes, the Baul. Wow, you queued the thing and looked it up as well.
Fastest finger first.
Yeah, Baul. They still seem creepy, and they have little clouds of darkness floating around their heads. But my only question is what do they eat? Since they're not eating Kelpians anymore, just like rabbits and goats and stuff.
Well, they'd have to go on land to get them, so I suspect not.
Fish.
But then how did they get the kelp? I don't know. But the Kelpians had to surrender themselves to the Baul.
That was the whole thing.
I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway,
well,
that was a nice little aside.
I thought that was nice, and since I didn't mention it, I'll say I thought it was nice that Sukhar went to Saru and said, listen, I have other friends now, and people always look at me and think of the burn and be worried, but there are less of them now than there were before. And just as Saru gave that speech about what is your home, the planet or the stars or the galaxy, are we together, whatever, Sukhar is like, you can be here. Your heart can be here at home in Kaminar, and you can go and join your friends, because it seems like there's a little wanderlust in Saru's eyes as he looks at the skies above Kaminar.
So does Michael have an official number one yet?
Ooh.
Because I wonder if Saru's going to come back and be number one.
Book does say before he leaves, this whole thing that Michael's doing this piece. He says, I'm sorry that Saru couldn't be here to see it. And Michael's obviously still pretty sad about it. I wonder, is it Reese?
Yes.
Reese takes the con twice in this episode.
That's true. I wonder, though, Sukhar releasing Saru and allowing him to go back to the ship. That's my thing. And I think also part of that is like the actor who plays Sukhar is fantastically popular, and I don't think he will sign on to do the series. I think he'll probably come back to do bits and pieces. So I think that's one of the reasons that they're kind of surrendering Sukhar off. And then Book, because his home planet's just disappeared, I think Book is going to go off in search of his people
Kewjian,
and just
they're called.
the Kewjian. I don't know, maybe it's just plural. To potentially start a colony. That's my theory.
Well,
Tinfoil time.
I love that theory. I think that. Well, here's the thing. I am a big dumb nerd, and I really, one of the coolest things I've ever seen is this the concept of gravitational lensing, which is like what they talk about that happened before the ship disappeared and stuff, that there was like this lensing of the stars, and basically that is what happens when the gravity is so immense, usually around like a black hole or something like that, or like a big giant star. The gravity is so intense that it causes the light to bend as if it was being refracted through a lens, through a glass. And so you get this weird lens effect, making things seem closer or further away than they are. So my big hope in my bullet point number 3 was this new threat. Travel to Kewjian. Maybe they're all right. Maybe they got transported somewhere else and we saw a destroyed planet that's not Kewjian.
That's true. Someone else could have come to the rescue.
Well, it's a mystery. I mean, we assume they're dead because that's the scary thing. But I'm hoping that, yes, there are some Kewjian still alive, especially little nephew boy whose name I forgot to write down. He's very cute.
I forgot. Oops. The only other thing I wanted to mention was the Culber Stamets moment where they were so worried about Adira.
Yeah, they were there because that's
when everyone came back,
kid.
they were.
Yeah, 100%.
I know, but it was just really cute that it was like, this is our kid.
Oh yeah,
like it was just that, like, this is our kid. And
yeah, when Stamets goes, is Adira all right? And everyone else, are they okay? Was great.
Yeah.
Yes.
I loved, there was a moment Stamets had when Michael was like, Stamets, you need to sort this out. And he was like, this would take 3 hours. And he just had this, like, it was very Scotty to me. It was almost comedic.
Yeah. Michael says, how soon can we get more power? And he's like, 4 hours at least. And Michael's like, we don't have that kind of time. He's like, what? Oh, yeah.
What do you want me to do?
And then he basically says, I'm giving her all she got, Captain, when he's like, you got 20% of power left in the EPS grid, and that's all we got. It was a total Montgomery Scott moment. Yeah. That was really great.
Absolutely. I enjoyed that.
And then my final thing was just that I love that this episode was called the Kobayashi Maru, because as we know, that is the test that they give people who are signing up to go into the command path when they reach, I guess, the commander or captaincy level. It's a test that you cannot pass. You cannot save everyone. You can't save the crew of your ship or the crew that you're trying to save, because like Klingon warbirds of prey show up and stuff, and one is cloak. And it's supposed to teach you how to accept defeat. Now, in the history of Star Trek, usually they bring it up to be like, there's no-win situations and you have to get used to it. But every time Kirk has faced something that has been applied to be akin to the Kobayashi Maru effect, he has won the day by doggedly sticking it out. And I'm trying to think. What I was wondering with the whole thing with the president and Michael was, is it like a parents just don't understand kind of thing? Like the president, the reason you're not a captain is because you think in this cold logic of there are acceptable losses. Sometimes you can't win. You don't try every available thing, and you're willing to risk your crew to save people that are important to the crew. Or are they right? And is the captain supposed to be more abject and at a remove? But every captain that we've loved, from Kirk to Picard to Cisco to Janeway to Archer, has risked everything to save a vital member of the crew, no matter whether they were an ensign or like a cadet or something like that. And that's part of, I think, the DNA of being a captain. But we shall see.
Indeed, we shall.
Shall we move on to quotable moments?
Let's do quotable moments.
You know, our drops are starting to trend to much, much more British, just in general. Obviously, I don't know who did our quick chat thing, but they were obviously British, and quotable moments is very posh.
Quotable moments. Did I say I've started watching Downton? Careful, I might start
you started watching Downton?
Oh, I
course
love it.
What's a weekend?
What's a
weekend?
Oh, yes, indeed.
Is there
What's
a Downton? I mean, listen, we're talking about Star Trek, but obviously we have other interests. Is there a Downton movie coming out soon? Is that true?
Yes. And actually, I met somebody who has a Downton podcast called Downton Blabby. Shout out to Sandy Max.
Love it.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Really enjoyed it.
Blabby.
But I know it's a great title. Anyway, and my wife and I have been watching this, and she gets quite a kick out of it because I love doing the Countess's accent. And Lord Grantham came down wearing a tuxedo, the new fashion of tuxedo, and the Countess looks to him and says, "Whatever next? Pajamas?" And my wife, like, thankfully, because if I did this in the UK with anyone else, they would just roll their eyes at me.
Yeah.
But my wife finds it quite
I
amusing.
assume your wife has not seen Downton Abbey before. This is new for both of you.
This is new for both of us, yes.
Oh, excellent. I'm jealous.
It's great fun.
I
thoroughly enjoyed this.
I may need to do a rewatch because I don't think I watched the last season in this new movie. Anyway.
Yeah, we digress. This is a Set Phasers podcast about Star Trek.
This is supposed to go. Do we need a section of the show that is just a digression? Here's a digression based on something we sort of talked about. Now, quotable moments. Well, I have a couple. There's not like a ton in this episode that really moved me, but the ones I really loved were in the pre-credits sequence.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great one-liners
There were.
in that. The back and forth where the misunderstand, they talk about Grudge, and she's the pet, and I love her, and I feed her treats, and then the Alshan asks, "Is she grateful?" And Book says, "No, not in any way." And the Alshan, "Do you expect us to be? Have you come to make us pets?" I thought
It was
great.
almost a Lower Decks opening.
Very Lower Decksy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it was shenanigans. It was total shenanigans. But, it ended... it was total shenanigans.
And it ended nothing like
And then,
Lower
of course,
Decks.
Yeah, "You will take us to your ship. We will free the queen" is like something that would
Yes,
come right
that's
out
very
of
true.
Lower Decks.
It's a Mike McMahon moment. Indeed.
Mike McMahon.
Did you have another one?
I have one more for sure. I love when Book is about to leave and he tells Michael, she's like upset that the president's going to be a politician. He says, "She's doing what politicians do. Don't punch them in the head."
Yeah.
I like that.
I had a couple. I think Saru had quite a nice little speech. He had some real wisdomous moments there. I think he talked about
Wisdomous.
celebrating our interconnectedness. And I just thought, Saru's going to be the one with the wisdom and the quotes and the speeches.
The new president of the Federation, maybe.
Very possibly. The other one I loved, and I can see this popping up elsewhere, was Squiddled.
Squiddled was great. Why did I not write that down?
I don't know. Destroyed beyond repair.
Yeah,
is
FUBAR,
its
yes.
definition.
Mhm.
Yeah, I loved it. I'm like,
Squiddles.
I think we're going to use Squiddled.
I think we are going to use Squiddled.
Squiddled. And the only other one was "Oh, should be good to go," which seemed to amuse everybody on
Yes.
the bridge, and I was like, okay, that sounds a bit funny. But anyway, "Oh, should be good to go."
These guys,
They're
they're nerds.
nerds.
They do poems
Yeah.
for fun. And at lunch. You know, they're just
That's
super
true.
nerds.
Well, there we are. That is all I had for quotable moments. Anything else?
I just love when Michael is running with Book and in the first scene, and they're first running away, and they're like, and there's a cliff, and Michael says, "Why is there always a cliff?" Was another great, very Lower Decksy style moment, but it fit very well in Discovery. That's all I've got. So I guess it's time for next time.
Next time.
Next time on Set Phasers.
Yes, next time on Set Phasers, we will be discussing Season 4, Episode 2 of Star Trek Discovery, which according to Wikipedia will be called, quote, Anomaly. Like there's quotations in the title. Oh, I just knocked my microphone over. I'm a little too excited. It will be called, quote, Anomaly. We'll be discussing that next Monday. So thank you very much for joining us, those of you who are on our Patreon and watching live. And thank you for those of you who are listening to us as a downloaded podcast. If you enjoyed the program, you can go back and catch old episodes and find our new podcast wherever you get podcasts from every Monday. Please subscribe if you can.
Yeah, and go and check out our Patreon. We are patreon.com/setphasers to join our watch parties, get exclusive early access to our video and audio episodes, and more. We've got official Star Trek merchandise. We've got official Set Phasers merch, some of which Aki is currently wearing and dancing in just now. Which you can only see if you are a patron. Oops.
It says highly illogical.
Yes, my wife makes our merch. Bless her cotton socks. She's the best. So anyway.
What's next? Pajamas?
Pajamas? We don't do pajamas yet. We could if there's a desire for pajamas.
Listen, hey man, I'm about that pajama life.
Give the people what they want. That's what I say.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Did you mention the podcast? Did you mention the podcast?
Did I mention the podcast?
And if you want to support us in our continuing mission to discover what else Star Trek has in store for us, in this case, Discovery, you can patronize us. We'd be delighted by going to patreon.com/setphasers. As we said at the top of the show, there's various levels you can join at and very cool things you can do. And we would very much appreciate you joining us on this voyage into the unknown. Join our crew. Permission to come aboard.
Permission granted.
Thank you, Zap. Yep.
Well, until next time, I'm Stevie Mans.
And I'm Aki Burmese, and this has been Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Computer. End program.